今日は今司会からありましたように、3人の海外からのスピーカーの方に、幸い参加していただけるということになりましたので、時差の関係でですね、こういう時間にそれぞれ皆さん、いろんな時間の都合があるんですけれども、開催することができたと、そういうことでございますので、よろしくお願いしたいと思います。今回はですね、JMOOCのワークショップとしては11回目ということになるんですけれども、この大学の、国際化、これは、今ご承知の通り世界中 COVID-19 のパンデミックということで、世界中の大学がいろんな形でオンラインの、授業といいましょうかね、それを利用した大学の研究あるいは教育ということを遂行しているわけです。そういう状況をどういうふうに捉えて、我々日本の大学はそれじゃどうしたらいいかということを皆様と一緒に考えていこうというようなことで始めたワークショップなんですが、今日はその2回目ということになります。で、今紹介ちょっとありましたけれども、香港から香港中文大学のウォン先生、そして、アメリカはイェール大学の、ローゼンブルース先生、そして、ベルギー、経由レーヴェンの、デスメット先生、ヨーロッパですね、そういう世界中の代表ということと、それから日本は、早稲田の方から弦間先生に立っていただいて、4人の方での話をいろいろしていただいてですね、それぞれの違いとか、それぞれの場所でいろんな問題を抱えておられるかもしれない、そういうことをいろいろご披露いただいた上で、皆さんで、それを元にしてディスカッションができたらというふうに思っておりますので、よろしくお願いいたします。はい、どうもありがとう。
白井先生、どうもありがとうございました。では、引き続きまして、このワークショップ全体に対しての趣旨説明を、私、JMOOC の副理事長をしております、早稲田大学の深澤からさせていただきます。で、まず、このワークショップでございますが、皆さんご存知のように、現下の、新型コロナウイルス感染症の大きな影響を受けている中で、大学は教育、研究を続けていかなければいけません。で、そのために大学自身は、いろいろな努力をしてきております。で、一方、これに対して、ソフトウェアメーカーはいろいろなソフトウェアを提供してくれて、例えば今日使っている Zoom とか、いろいろなソフトウェアを提供してくれて、この、研究教育の継続に対して、貢献をしてくれています。で、この中から、次の世代、コロナが収まった後にも、何らかの教育におけるデジタルトランスフォーメーションが起きることを期待しております。で、このような視点から、JMOOC では、4種類のワークショップをテレビ会議で、流してきております。最初の、1種類目はオンライン授業と新しい大学ということで、先ほどの、パワーポイントで言います。ここ、大学等がどういう工夫をしているかっていう視点での、ワークショップを、開催してきております。それから2つ目は e ラーニングの進歩ということで、オンライン授業をサポートするいろいろなシステムにどのようなものが新しいもので、どのようなものがあるか。先ほどの、パワーポイントで言いますと、ここの部分として、講演をしてきて、ワークショップを開催してきております。で、それ以外に、最近大きな問題となっております、初等中等教育の IT 化。皆さんギガスクールなどという言葉を、お聞きになっているかもしれませんが、それが、このようなことを3番目のテーマとして扱ってきております。そして、4番目のテーマ、今日まさに、このテーマの下での、ワークショップとなりますが、大学の国際化の新展開とリスク管理 ということで、例えば9月の入学問題などについて、議論を進めていきたいと思っております。ちなみに、このワークショップは先ほど白井、理事長の話にもございましたように5月30日から始めまして全体で3ヶ月全13回を予定しております。これが13回の内容でございます。本日は11回海外大学のオンライン教育の取り組みとそこから学べる教訓ということでございます。あと2回残っております。で、すべてのワークショップに関しましては、映像と、各先生などがお使いになっているパワーポイントを、JMOOC のホームページ、具体的にはそこに挙げられているホームページでアドレスですが、そこに挙げてございますので、今、この第1回から第10回までをご覧になって、こういうことについて、見逃してしまったけど見たいなということがありましたら、ぜひ、JMOOC のホームページからご覧いただければと思います。で、本日のプログラムです。本日のプログラムは、3名の先生から基調講演をいただきまして、その後、ディスカッション、パネルディスカッションとして、諸事例から学べる教育と課題ということで、モデレーターとして、早稲田大学の国際担当理事の弦間先生にお願いしております。それからパネリストとして、基調講演をいただいた3名の先生方、プラス、早稲田大学の国際部長を務められておりますリー・マージ先生から、の、4名プラス、モデレーターの弦間先生ということで、ディスカッションを進めていきたいと思っております。では、弦間先生、よろしくお願いいたします。
かしこまりました。それぞれのスピーカーの方にお話をしていただく前に、簡単にスピーカーの方々のプロフィールをご紹介したいと思います。Let me just explain your bio before starting your individual presentations. I'm sorry, it'll be in Japanese. まずはじめに、香港中文大学のウォング先生です。ウォング先生は、アソシエイトバイスプレジデントをの職務にあります。そして、社会学の学科の教授でもございます。で、先生は、学部時代はイギリスのリバプール大学で、研鑽を積まれ、で、博士号はアメリカのスタンフォード大学で取得されています。で、日本の、国際キリスト教大学を含めまして、いろいろな海外の、著名な教育機関で教えられて、で現在は香港中部大学の方で教えていらっしゃいます。で、ちょっと飛ばしまして、で研究分野としては教育の、社会学的な側面の研究、そして、高度教育の組織化などについて、研究を進めています。で、学内ではいろいろなその、主要なポストを務めにいらっしゃって、ファカルティオブソーシャルサイエンスの社会科学部においてはアソシエイトディーンを務められ、そしてスチューデンツの、CW 中カレッジにおいては学生担当の学部長部長を務められていました。で、社会貢献もいろいろな香港をはじめとして、外国の団体においても、公共性の高い、プログラムにおいて活躍されています。以上がウォング先生のご紹介でした。で次にローゼンブルース先生です。ローゼンブルース先生はアメリカアビーリング一つのイェール大学の、デーモン・イェールプロフェッサー・オブ・ポリティカル・サイエンスです。で、 ローゼンブルース先生はアメリカを代表する、比較政治学の大家でいらっしゃいます。バージニア大学ではハイエストディスティンクションで多くを卒業なさり、コロンビア大学で修士号と博士号を取っていらっしゃいます。で、その間には東京大学において、大学院生として、訪問、大学院生で研究を続けられました。で、イェール大学の学内では、また主要な、執行部において活躍なさり、直近では Deputy Provost for Social Science and Faculty Development and Diversity のポストに2008年から2013年までついていらっしゃいました。で、ここに書いてあるような Undergraduate Studies and Institutional Studies とか、プログラム for Ethics, Politics and Economics のプログラムにおいては、それぞれ現在もダイレクターを務めていらっしゃいます。で、2018年の11月からは学外理事として早稲田大学の理事会で、活躍していただいております。以上がローゼンブルース先生のご紹介でした。で、ベルギーにあるケイルーバンの、デスメット先生のご紹介になります。デスメット先生に関しましてはちょっと上の英語の文を訳しました。で、デスメット先生はそのケイルーバンの副学長です。で、ケイルーバンは2025年に600周年を迎えるヨーロッパでも最も長い歴史を持つ大学の一つです。大学のランキングも世界の最高峰に輝いています。デスメット先生の職務なんですが、副学長としての主要な役割は、教育技術、Educational Technology の、分野になっています。Going Digital というのが、ケイルーバンが最も重要視している、長期戦略の一つであり、それを実現するための調整を図るのがデスメット副学長に託された仕事になっています。で、その他にコロナ感染症の拡大に対応するため、セルス学長が設置したハイレベルタスクフォースの中で、教育技術の利用に関して中心的な役割を果たしています。で、教授としては取り組む研究も教育技術に関するものです。で、学際的な研究を行う、研究所の所長も務められ、で、研究プロジェクトでは、この IMEC スマートエデュケーションというプロジェクトのやはりアカデミックダイレクターを務められています。以上が説明です。それでは個別の報告に移りたいと思います。
Thank you very much, Professor Gamma. 皆さんこんばんは。こちらは香港中文大学のWong 主任でございます。よろしくお願いします。I have been told to use English for the workshop, so now I will switch to English. Let me do a share screen. My presentation will be on a very recent and innovative endeavor to bring together students from over 47 countries to join in a very, very big program using digital on the virtual space to try to get together three very distinct features onto this very, what we think is very innovative endeavor during this pandemic period. My topic is on virtual student exchange. This is actually the name of a program that the university, our university, is collaborating with APRU, the Asian Pacific Rim University Association, which I will talk more later on. This is because it involves so many countries, but the advantage is we also managed to bring together the world of students into this program, hopefully. let me just start with by introducing a little bit of my university very briefly. The Chinese University of Hong Kong is a rather young university. The university was established in 1963. It's a comprehensive research university that enrolls the largest number of students in Hong Kong. What makes the university very unique is we are probably the only university in the world that writes into the statute of the university that it is bilingualism and multiculturalism. So for all students who try to get into the university will have to have the command of both Chinese and English. Because the founders of the university, they were intellectuals and professors from China in those days in the 30s, and they came to Hong Kong, as well as missionaries from Europe and from the United States. So that's why we emphasize both bilingualism and multiculturalism. The mission of the university, as you can see, is to combine tradition with modernity to bring together China and the West. So we do have our deep roots in actually bringing the Chinese culture aspects, including the language part, into the university as the founding elements of the university. The other unique feature of the university is we have a unique college system. We sort of taking the model of Oxford-Cambridge college system together with the Song-Ming dynasty in China, the more mentor-mentee collegial system into the university. So these are a very brief introduction of my university. For the university, we focus on student development, just as I just introduced. This is the only university in Hong Kong that offers a collegial system. So we have 9 colleges, probably not as many as Oxford and Cambridge, but every single student who enrolls in the university will have an identity of also belonging to a college. We are also the largest and greenest and most scenic campus in Hong Kong. 137 acres built on a hill. So this is also what we call a hilly campus, but making it a very beautiful landscape facing the waterfront as well as with all the greens around us. We have a medical school, a very established one, but we are also now about to complete and finish a CHK medical center, another non-profit private teaching hospital to be opened in 2020. So these are some of the newer developments and sort of a basic background of the university. Why the university, as I mentioned, this is a very comprehensive and the largest university in Hong Kong. Right now we have about 17,000 undergraduates, about 13,000 postgraduates. So together we have a student population of 300,000 in the university. 1,700 teaching staff, 1,500 research staff, a full-fledged comprehensive faculties with arts, business administration, education, engineering, law, medicine, science, and social science. We have also separately 330 research institutes and centers. So we have a lot of also international collaborations because of all or the establishment of all these research institutes and centers. For non-local students, we have about 7,400 non-local students from over 60 countries in the university. That makes the campus virtually every 7 students you meet on campus, there's virtually one that is non-local students. Okay, in the recent years, we have devoted a lot of effort and resources to build up our international education, particularly international exchange programs. We are the first university in Hong Kong that established the first exchange program in 1965 with the University of California system. As of today, we have about 280 international partners in over 30-something plus destinations. Each year, we send our students out to our partner universities, partner institutions. We send out about 1,200 undergraduate students. These students are on term-long exchanges. Some are on a year-long exchanges as well. There are about approximately 5,000 students joining short-term experiential learning programs outside Hong Kong during the summer. We have reached now over 30% of our students, before they graduate, they would have had one experience of overseas academic exchange. We almost reach about 100% of our students who will have had either a short-term experiential learning experience outside of Hong Kong or a short-term service learning programs outside of Hong Kong. So for experiential learning part, the short-term part that comes in various formats, we almost reach about 100% of our students who would have had that short-term experiential learning experience. For our postgraduate exchanges for research and coursework, constantly we also have postgraduate student exchange, more on bilateral exchange, universities with another partner universities, or research institute with another research institutions overseas. Some of our students engage in double degree programs that they will spend half of their undergraduate study time in Hong Kong and half of their time in an overseas institution. Okay, now I wanted to move on to the focus of my talk today. As you have just learned, that we have been heavily involved in international exchange, students short-term experiential learning. Now, international student exchange and study abroad programs really represent the major mechanism to bring students together into a community for global learning, for cultural understanding, and for exchange of ideas. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that has also brought to us unprecedented challenges, which in fact has a big impact on our international education programs significantly. Especially, the whole world is very much into the globalization era, the globalization culture. So because of that, we have been spending a lot of time by beginning introducing online learning, first of all, on-campus online learning to our students for 2 terms since the second term in the past academic year, and also the summer term of this year. We started to think about what shall we do to compensate for what we treasure so much, our international student exchange. So the pandemic really accelerated, on one hand, the adoption of digital technology in higher education. But on the other hand, how are we going to make use of this digital technology to also fulfill our mission of our global learning, study abroad, as well as bringing our students together to immerse them in a foreign culture, in a more multicultural environment. So we think about we should work together to create opportunities for our international exchange for students, and not just at home, but also abroad. We also thought this pandemic, or even in the post-pandemic world, this won't be the same as before. Like what we used to say, we are adapting ourselves to the new normal. So this is not going to be a short-term fix to just a current problem because of the current COVID-19 pandemic. But we also think about perhaps this is the time to think about during and the post-pandemic 19 world to make all these, what we have gathered together in terms of our tools and experience, to make it a permanent tool for internationalization. Our thinking, in fact, focuses on 5 aspects. First of all, to widen the access to more students, to students from all over the world, as many as possible. How are we going to tackle also internationalization at home when we were not, like last semester, when we were not able to bring our foreign students, the incoming students, to our campus? So how are we going to do on this part of internationalization at home? The third feature we were thinking is, how are we going to raise our students' digital competence? Well, students probably will learn faster, in fact, than our faculty members, because based on our experience in our past 2 semesters, we have more questions about digital utilizations from faculty members than from our students. So we might as well make use of this opportunity to enhance the digital competence university-wide. Again, part and part of the international academic exchange or study abroad also is to prepare our students for their future employment. And we have been always talking about, we do not just prepare our students to be locally employable in this age. We also want to prepare our students to be globally employable. So how are we going to have this aspect of career preparation built into this student exchange concept using the virtual platform? Again, a very important part of the university is on research. How are we also going to bring together our faculty research, engaging them still in partnerships, again, on this virtual platform? So with all this in mind, this is how we set off to begin designing, and in fact, we are very, very close to launch the virtual student exchange program. Okay, now, in terms of the digital platforms, compare with our traditional exchange, we've always been thinking of 3 pillars. In the traditional exchange, the 3 pillars will include definitely academic coursework. We send our students, we welcome international students to our campus. We provide very unique or culture-bound academic courses to our students. So coursework, academic coursework, is always the core part of international academic exchange and the study abroad programs. The second pillar is also the part on co-curricula. That is, whether our students go abroad to a foreign institution or whether we host foreign students to our campus in an international exchange program. We always include the cultural aspects, the career aspects. Sometimes we also offer leadership and social programs to our students. The third pillar in the traditional exchange we will always try to engage students in the new international social communities. So if all these students have come to our campus from various parts of the world, we always have social programs to engage them together, to really give them a real feeling of student mix and cultural mix on campus. So these are probably the three very important pillars that we will put into, I'm sure all the other, our partner institutions as well, will put into our traditional student exchange program. Now, how are we going to transform all these onto a digital platform with all three pillars still bear very important landmarks in the digital exchange? We, in collaboration with the Asian Pacific Rim universities, we got together and we are about to launch the APU Virtual Student Exchange Program. We are about to launch next week, in fact, very close, the pilot program. So let me just give you an idea, a brief introduction on where we are now and how we have tried to put together this virtual student exchange program in collaboration with APRO. First of all, with APRO, all the member institutions in APRO, they are all given an opportunities to join the program. As of today, we have been able to solicit over 50 universities in Americas, Asia, and Australia through online platforms and digital technologies. With these 50 universities, we found that we have some common concerns that we share. And so we started to discuss again through the Zoom, through online platforms, first of all, to start explore what were the problems, difficulties, obstacles that we were facing and we are about to face. Based on their experiences, almost all of them have gone online in the past 2 terms or semesters. Again, more so is with the uncertainty in the 4th semester, that is in September, the 1st term or the 4th term that we are about to begin. Many have mentioned to us that they would adopt a blended learning, what we call a hybrid learning, a mixture of face-to-face with online. But again, they were not sure whether even 10% or 20% of the face-to-face teaching will be possible at all. So what we did was we gathered together courses from all these universities that we think they will be able, these are good courses that will be able to share among all these universities if we all put all these courses in a basket and turn them into online courses. So after that, we have a good inventory of online courses that we gathered from all these universities. We asked these universities to contribute courses into a basket. These are courses that they would think they might already have had some very good success with former international exchange curriculum. Very popular among international students, international exchange students in their curriculum. So they would contribute this kind of courses. Or courses they have just developed in the last 2 terms that have worked out very nicely through online. So this will be another unique feature of these courses that will flow into the basket. With all these courses together, we've now collected a basket of courses that we think these courses will attract a diverse student body. For some faculty members from these universities, we even co-create new courses. So let me give you an example. We have, for example, we have developed a course that compared the economy during the pandemic and projecting the post-pandemic in Asia and the United States. So this is a kind of co-created new courses that we think these courses are also timely courses for students to learn about various social, political, or cultural aspects of different societies in the world. So we leverage on partner courses offerings to complement also our own curriculum. Now, with the teaching mode, we adopt a mixed teaching mode of synchronized and asynchronized teaching. The whole idea is there's some kind of intentional effort for teamwork among students, also from different universities as well. So these courses are right now, I can share with you, some of these courses are regional distinctive. Some of these courses are of very international context, so that we managed to encourage co-teaching and also speakers, guest speakers into these courses. These are courses designed to provide essential skills to prepare students for the post-COVID-19 world. And there are also some flagship courses, like I mentioned. These are probably the very popular courses back home in their institutions. And now we put them in the baskets as they are now being called the flagship courses. Okay, what about the co-curricula? The second pillar that we have to also try to resemble or try to perhaps do as much as we can to offer that kind of experience to our international exchange students virtually. This will probably, we got together and we designed this co-curricular programs into probably what we will call it just a one-off short programs. These could be regular online discussions courses. Perhaps we can also encourage students to engage in some competitions. We can invite, for example, experts to give workshops. For example, students might be very interested in esports. We might be able to invite experts in esports to give a talk, to give a workshop. Students can then follow up with a tutorial session. They could also raise questions on entrepreneurship as well as innovative or startup business. So we are thinking of 4 features in terms of this kind of co-curricular programs. Cultural, very important. Try to stimulate our students to gain in-depth understanding of cultures and embark on journeys. For this part, for example, local museum tours. We invite professors to explain to students why are these arts and artifacts, the exhibitions are very unique in this particular society. We have a very big ocean park in Hong Kong. We can also involve students into the whole idea of conservation in terms of cultural and educational experience. These are sort of things that somebody also has an idea of. Perhaps for all the universities that involve in the virtual student exchange, they can also introduce the history, the culture of the university. Given, for example, Yale University is definitely a very, with lots of historical and heritage remains for the students to learn about the university. So that way we will keep the students be interested in international exchange, or should there be an opportunity to go overseas to do a physical exchange in future, they would be very aspired to go to visit a particular university to do their academic, international academic exchange. We also wanted to focus some parts on leadership, focus particularly in the context of globalization, communication, and teamwork through our co-curricular programs. The career aspect, prepare for future industries, practical skills needed for future workplace. I'm sure in different parts of the world, with our partner institutions under APRU, in their society, in their university, there would be somebody who have expertise in introducing students to the career part, how global or how regional the career aspects are available, or be very unique in which part of the world in terms of career aspect. We also are very concerned about social, because if the students come to a campus, we can engage them in actual physical social programs. So what we're going to do is to organize by the students. We will encourage our students in the home institutions. Each of us in the home institutions will encourage our students to offer their student-run societies or activities. Let me give you an example. In my university, the Major Game student society is very popular. The Chinese martial art is very popular. So we were thinking perhaps from different parts of the world, different partner institutions, they can also involve their students in the social networking through this kind of student-run social activities to engage them in the international networking. All right, so I'm about to finish. So with the three features, again, with APRU, the virtual student exchange, hopefully we will not make concessions on the three pillars that we would have included in our conventional international exchange. So the academic part is probably the easier part, so that students will still be able to take courses, if only that they will have even much more condensed and array of flagship and culture bound and globally bound courses offered. And also, it also aims to, again, to develop and enhance their digital competency. The second part, the co-curricular, hopefully with this aspect, we will be able to prepare students for future careers and workplace. We will be able to engage students to also experience culture and society of different places through their eyes of friends. For the social pillar, hopefully we will work with our peers from around the world, learn to work across cultures, not only the students, but the faculties as well. Hopefully we will build new friendships and social as well as professional networks. So the global leadership and citizenship training is a new part we wanted. This is something that we are going to also include in the second phase of the development of the student virtual program. We collaborate with the University of Oregon, connecting students with NGOs and other organizations to work on this project. And I'm not going to go into the details of this, but you can see that as we develop the first phase, the initial launch of the virtual student exchange, we are also at the same time developing the second phase of the VSD program. Putting it together, the basic principle is we feel that reciprocity is consortium-wide. We will work this out by encouraging each other, inspiring each other, getting each other to work through our virtual platform, through our emails. So this is actually a very exciting part of our work, that hopefully this reciprocity will actually bring us even closer. There's no tuition to the host institution at all. There will be no additional cost to students. This would make it very attractive. But again, they can still get credit transfers from their home universities. They can manage their academic workload better. The selection of students will totally be in the hands of the host university or the host university's teacher or the professor. Now, one of the biggest challenges how to manage such a big project with this virtual student exchange with so many universities joining. We have set up a central office serving as the depository of information for academic courses and programs and coordinate between all parties. So right now, the central office is set up at APRU. Let me just bring you my last slides. Let me just bring you an update what we are now for the initial launch. Application for academic courses, we have now in the basket 60 plus something courses involving 9 universities very solidly across 3 continents, Asia, United States, Americas, as well as the Central and South America, and 7 economies. This is the website page that we have just launched today, actually. So if you are interested in the other details of what I have introduced in this workshop, we welcome you to visit the VSE, stand for Virtual Student Exchange, apru.org. So I will stop here and I would be delighted to hear your comments, feedbacks, and all the professional and international exchange later on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Wong.
皆さんこんばんは。ローゼンブルースと申します。私も英語で発表させていただきますので勘弁してください。Okay, thank you. So all of us, I think, on this call have had some experience with online teaching, and my intention this evening is to think together with you about what works, what doesn't work so well, and how we might be better, become better online teachers. That little technology glitch you saw a minute ago is one of the funny things about Zoom, that when you're sharing your screen, you can't necessarily see that you're sharing it. Another obvious problem is this new concept, this new word called Zoom fatigue. Students and faculty are unable to see each other's eyes. And psychologically, this is an unnatural phenomenon. It becomes tiring to just watch a screen and not really have that human engagement. So let's think together about some ways to tackle this problem. One thing you can do on Zoom, and I'll come back to this later, is to use the function, it's called polling, and you can start by establishing a personal connection with your students or your audience. This is just one possible question. What is the strangest thing you did while attending an online meeting? And, you know, ate breakfast, wore pajamas, brushed my teeth, other things, but I'm not going to say what. And so, you know, there is a kind of danger if it's a very, very big class and people don't have their screens on, you can't see what your audience is doing and they start to lose connection with the class. So how do we engage our students in this unnatural world? One thing that is possible for medium-sized Zoom classes is to break the class up into small groups so they can discuss among themselves. This works even with pretty big lecture classes. So you can use your function on Zoom to break the group into small groups. They can all turn on their cameras and their able to see each other pretty well, then they can come back to the larger group and report out their experiences in the small group. Another thing that works this way is collaboration, but this is a little harder. How do you get students to collaborate on a problem or a project in this online setting? And one technology that some of you may know from pedagogy is this phenomenon or technique called the jigsaw puzzle. If I could see your faces, I would ask for a show of hands, how many of you use this? This is a teaching technique that works in social science, humanities, sciences, and is a way to get students to think about a problem in a number of different ways. So the main technique of the jigsaw is to start with a home group, or you could call them an expert group, where you give each group, and you can see on the right-hand side here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. You can divide your students into groups and give each of them either a period of history or a theoretical approach or an experimental method, and then remix the group so that you have one person in this jigsaw group from each of the categories that you divided your students into. So each new group has a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And so now they are sharing experiences across areas of expertise, which enables them to develop different ways of looking at the same problem. So in political science, we often ask, who are the players? What do they want? What are their resources? And what do they get? And this gives us some understanding of how power works in a society. So that would be one way to divide groups into the 1, 2, 3, 4, mix them across different types of issues like education, environment, incarceration. You know, in the United States, incarceration is a very racialized problem where African Americans are much more likely to be incarcerated, more likely to be below the poverty line. And so this is a way to get students to think about these problems from a number of points of view. And I should just say here briefly that my presentation, I hope, will interest you or bring to your mind questions and comments to which I hope we can return. Now, Zoom has a very easy breakout room function. It's a little bit harder to regroup them into precisely the jigsaw. I hope Zoom will fix that. Right now, if you are to do jigsaw on Zoom, you have to make sure that each of the groups has somebody from the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 expert group. It's possible to do that. It's easier if you have an assistant working with you on the technical side while you continue your teaching. Another thing you can have students do, either individually or as a group, is to have them share their screen. So after they've worked on a project, they can share the screen with each other in small groups, or then create a joint screen sharing for the whole group. I mentioned at the beginning this function of polling. And if we had time, I would try it with you right now to say how many of you are sleepy, how many of you are brushing your teeth, or, you know, more importantly, this polling is a way to get students to tell you how well they understand the material. So here's a very simple question. How well do you understand the content we've covered so far? No questions, I could use a review, or I'm lost. In the social sciences, if you're presenting material about, let's say, political preferences or sexual orientation or some interaction effect of different attributes. You can use this polling to find out more about your students, but also get them to see about other students. And this builds toleration, as long as they understand that it's completely confidential, anonymous, and nobody can trace their answer to themselves. This is another example, a mood barometer on a scale of 1 to 7. How are you feeling today? So these are ways to just check in. This works even in a very, very big class, so you can see how your students are doing as you go through the class. How would you describe the past week for you? In the COVID-19 world, a lot of students are feeling various kinds of stress, and it's good for faculty members to tap into how they're feeling, to see what their issues are, and then you can create a word cluster from that. Okay, so the final thing that I want to do is to talk very, very briefly about how Zoom technology and connecting and engaging with students can work in a MOOC. MOOC is different from a regular Zoom class in that it is massive, it is online, it is recorded. So you're not going to have engagement with your students as you teach the course. How can students feel like they are part of what is going on? And during the COVID-19, many organizations and institutions use MOOC courses as a substitute for the regular classroom experience. So it's very important for teachers of MOOC classes to try to personalize or bring the human element into the classroom, make it more personal. This is Professor Ian Shapiro teaching a MOOC class on the moral foundations of politics. It's one of Yale's bigger MOOC classes. I think it has 60,000 viewers. And so instead of talking at the camera, you can see he's looking to the side. He actually has these two students in his room asking him questions, and he asks them questions. So it's a Socratic method that is recorded into a MOOC course that then the participants in the MOOC course see online and can respond to through a section or through some kind of communication with the professor and get feedback. But this is a way for them to imagine the questions they would ask, and hopefully the professor has anticipated some of those. The second MOOC course I want to talk briefly about, you may know about this, it's called The Science of Well-Being. And as you might imagine with COVID-19, the popularity of this class has just exploded. It has over 1 million Coursera users. This is Professor Santos in the psychology department. She is an evolutionary psychologist and neuropsychologist who has taught a course at Yale and now on the MOOC platform to get people not only to know the science of well-being, but also to practice some of the recommended changes, that is to modify their behavior to avoid bad feeling and dysfunctional behavior. And how did she do this to make it personal? How did she personalize her MOOC class? This is Professor Santos in a Yale college. You can see she's quite young, so the students feel like they have a rapport with her. But in addition to sitting in the living room of one of the Yale colleges, she has an audience of Yale students who are in the room with her, who are asking her questions. She's looking at their faces and gauging their comprehension as she goes along, and she is changing her approach to the material as she engages with them. So the many, many MOOC viewers have a sense that she is being responsive to student puzzles and the kinds of questions that they may themselves have. So this is just, I hope, a set of issues that I'm putting out there for you to think about, and I'm looking forward to our panel discussion when we can think together about these issues. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Desmet. The floor is for you. Thank you.
So it's really my pleasure to sit in front of you and to be able to explain you a bit how at the University of Leuven here in Belgium, we try to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic and what was the impact of the use of technology, education technology, to tackle that issues. And so the global outline of my talk is quite simple. So first of all, I would like to give a very small and short idea about what is the profile of our university, since many of the elements of our strategy are linked to the profile of our university. And then the second aspect will be that even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we had a clear-cut strategy at university level. I'd like to explain what is that strategy. And the strategy helped us a lot to tackle the real issues we had during the COVID-19 period. So the COVID-19 pandemic will be the third part of my talk. So the first part is linked to the profile of KU Leuven. A very short part, sorry, please go a bit too quick. Let's go back. Voila. So KU Leuven is an old university, one of Europe's oldest universities, founded in 1425, and we are celebrating our 1600th anniversary in 1425, located in the heart of Europe, so a very old, reputed university. And then the three following characteristics of our university are very important for this talk. First of all, we are a comprehensive university, a completely comprehensive university with 15 faculties of 3 science groups: humanities and social sciences, science, engineering and technology, and medicine and the biomedical sciences. This means that we cover all disciplines and that the kind of technological solutions we want to offer should be useful in each of those faculties. Second characteristic is that we have many, many students. Although we are a performing university, we are one of the largest universities in Europe too, with more than 60,000 students. So this means that there too, the solutions we offer should have robustness that allows to tackle that kind of populations. And the third characteristic is that we are a multi-campus organization. So we have 14 campuses spread across 10 cities in Flanders. So you can imagine that there too, multi-location technology solution is absolutely needed to cover that specific aspect of our campus. The fourth characteristic is that we are a very internationally oriented university. We are part of many, many networks, many exchange programs, many international students on board also in Leuven. And so we should also have solutions for that part of our population. And let me just remember that we rank among the best universities worldwide, which means that for our staff, there should be a good balance between teaching and research. And whenever we ask our staff to involve in teaching, they should have the support they need, the perfect technical solution, but also the supporting staff to help them realize a top teaching performance, but combining it with their research ambitions. So this is the profile of our university. And within our university, we developed, as a matter of fact, a strategic plan. And the strategic plan we developed, is a plan you see here. Our rector, Luc Sels, is a plan we developed in 2017 already, when our rector started his mandate. He said, well, we have to make some decisions at that already in 2017. We have to make decisions for the long term, for 10 to 15 years. In the sense that we, in principle, we have mandates of 4 years, but it's important now to take decisions about long-term development aspects of our university. And we defined 5 aspects. The first one is truly international. Second one, future-oriented education. The third one, going digital. The fourth, interdisciplinarity. And the fifth, sustainability. So I'm going to focus, of course, on the going digital part, which is highly linked to the future-oriented education part. And going digital is the part of the strategic plan I'm responsible for myself. So the idea of going digital, what is the rationale behind going digital? Why having a part on education technology in our strategic plan of the university? First of all, of course, technology is only but a means. It's not a goal in itself. So what are our ambitions? We have 4 ambitions. So the first ambition is to come to better learning and to better assessment, to come to active and collaborative learning. So the previous talk was focusing on collaboration, on exchange, on engagement, on involvement. Well, I think that's very, very important. We should also have an effective and an efficient assessment solution. How can we come to online testing platforms, online examination centers that make the difference? Moreover, we have new learning contexts, multi-location learning. So we installed, for instance, what you see here, our hybrid and virtual classroom. So with some students sitting in the classroom and plenty of students connecting through the screens we have over there. It's a solution we developed in a project with Barco, and Harvard was the first to have an installation. We were the second, and we co-developed the solution you see over here. Also involve technology in lifelong learning. It's very, very important that while university is evolving, we are not only tackling the audience from, let's say, from bachelor and master level, but also the lifelong learning students. And there should be some continuity also at the level of the technology we use for all those audiences. The third ambition is to have better incoming students, but also to have better study results and to have learning dashboards, analytics, allowing us to monitor the quality of our educational process. And the fourth ambition is to have a stronger internationalization. And so through workshops like this, we get in touch with plenty of international partners through the MOOC platform edX, on which we are working and partner of, through the Universitas 21 network, for instance. We see the university is also part of that network. All kinds of networks allowing us to strengthen our position and, well, to learn from each other. And what are the 10 policy objectives of that Going Digital policy plan? Well, the first one is the kind of necessary prerequisite, but a very important one. We need a powerful backbone, a good data center, connection with all of our campuses, high density Wi-Fi, good infrastructure in all of our lecture halls. It seems evident, but it isn't. And we should have that for every classroom experience and allow technology to enter all of our lecture halls, all of our laboratories, all of our educational settings. So that's the first objective. The second objective is the kind of basic environment we offer to all our students and all our staff. It's our learning experience platform. It goes beyond a learning management system. We have Blackboard, but that's not important. It could be Moodle or whatever. There is a learning management system as a kind of basic platform on which we build and integrate different applications. We have more than 30 applications in our Toledo environment, our own Toledo environment. 15, well, half of those applications more or less are in-house built, the other ones are off the shelf, but that's not important. What we need is perfect functionalities to offer all kinds of technological solutions our students and staff really need. And this is for university-wide rollout, so it should be perfectly robust. But it should also allow us to tackle more advanced learning situation and not limit ourselves to multiple choice, drag and drop, fill in the blank, but also more advanced learning activities and complex learning. That are the two, let's say, basic objectives. Then we have the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth objective, or four more challenging objectives. The third objective is online assessment and online examination. We wanted to put in place online examination centers, also to bring your own device, and to have software allowing for calibrated item banks to be used to generate comparable exam solutions. The fourth objective are the MOOCs. The previous speaker already talked about the MOOCs. Well, we too are quite involved in the MOOCs movement. And a very important point for us is that we want MOOCs to become MOOCs for credit, our own MOOCs, but also MOOCs from partners. And our MOOCs could generate credits also at other international renowned universities. So, on the other hand, we want also to stimulate on-campus use of our MOOCs and of international MOOCs, and to create strong partnerships linked to the creation of those MOOCs and those MOOCs for credits and the creation of micromasters. The fifth objective is the learning spaces. I think this is a very challenging one. Not all lecture halls allow for collaboration. So we need collaboration rooms, technology-enhanced collaboration rooms. We need multi-location solutions, hybrid classrooms, virtual classrooms, allowing to have real-time exchange, synchronous learning, with polling, with hand-raising, with interaction, with engagement and measurement of that engagement. Very important objective. The sixth objective is learning analytics. We have plenty of data. And we are living in a world where all domains become smart, become data-driven. So what about education? Education should also become smart. That's why I'm academic director of the Smart Education program. Smart education meaning that we're going to exploit and harness the collective data of our learners that are in our learning platforms, in our systems, to create new services and to generate new solutions. Very important challenge. So these are four challenging issues. Up till now, the 6 objectives were purely technological. Objectives 7, 8, 9, and 10 are pedagogical and linked to the kind of staff we need. I always say when we launch a project in education technology, it's not dominantly a technological project, it's an educational project. So it's all about people, it's all about staff, much more than about technology in itself. So the 7th objective is to create what we call Leuven Learning Lab. It's a network. It's a network bringing together staff from faculties, from the groups, the 3 scientific groups, from our services, and working together on educational innovation. It's a website, and through that website, we create a community. It's community building, very important, of course, also in this COVID period. Community building, exchange of expertise, eventing, training sessions online, and so on and so forth. The eighth objective is, of course, that we needed new team members. So we hired new staff at the level of the faculties. So new staff, 80 new staff members, to help our academic staff, our professors, to make the maximal and the most effective use of technology in their classes. And also we added 10 staff members at the level of the groups, the scientific groups, the 3 large groups for domain-specific competencies. So for instance, for the biomedical sciences, we have experts on augmented and virtual reality. For humanities and social sciences, it's on open questioning and giving intelligent feedback on writing assessment, intelligent feedback on writing, on speaking, and so on and so forth, so on open questioning. Then we have the 9th objective is the first line support. We think it's very important that within the faculties, within the curricula, the individual professors, teaching assistants could rely on the network and could have a first line support. That's why we have that first line support and a train-the-trainer program also for that first line support. And the 10th objective is innovative digital learning projects. So whatever staff member, whatever program, curriculum, or faculty has a brilliant idea about we could use new technology, or how to use new technology in our curricula, well, they can get funding through this funding scheme, KU Leuven internal funding scheme for innovative digital learning projects. So these were the 10 objectives we had before the COVID-19 pandemic was a reality we had to deal with. And for us, it was very important that we had already that strategic plan in beforehand. Because once the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, well, I think we were relatively, I insist on the relatively, ready to tackle that reality. I'll make a difference between the first wave and the period we're living now and what will come next year. The first wave was a period of crisis. In the first wave, we had no on-campus activity and only online activity. It was fully online. In principle, we use blended learning. We combine the best of both worlds, on campus and online. And that's a quite useful pedagogy and highly appreciated and effective way to teach. And now all of a sudden, we had to change radically to the online mode only, with 60,000 students. So we can imagine that the impact of that crisis on the reorganization of our teaching organization was tremendous. It was a crisis, and I'm going to explain how we managed that crisis. And then now, what's coming up next year is no longer a crisis. We can't foresee it. And so now we build up a more long-lasting strategy to use technology in whatever situation. With an important crisis, a less important crisis, we can moderate in function of the situation. But first, the crisis situation, the COVID-19's first wave. As a matter of fact, we decided to capitalize maximally on going digital. We had, well, in the beginning, some days, then some weeks to take the decisions we needed. And we decided to focus on 4 out of the 10 objectives. We took the first one, of course, the technical constraints and conditions, the backbone. We increased storage capacity, very important. We did extensions of the software licenses. So all kinds of interventions our staff isn't aware of. They shouldn't be aware of that, but it's very important. It's the necessary prerequisite for a successful implementation of educational technology. The second objective was to maximize the use of our Toledo learning experience platform. and to focus on specific aspects. So I said we have 30 applications in it. So for instance, online portfolio is one of them, very useful in the COVID period. Another one is the Kaltura video solution platform we have. It's an off-the-shelf solution. And an off-the-shelf solution for asynchronous learning, allowing every professor, every teaching assistant to create web lectures, to edit those recordings and to integrate recordings in the learning experience platform, and they put them at the disposal to edit them also and to add extra features, assignments and that kind of stuff. So we focused on the widespread use of Kaltura and Kaltura Capture, and it was a real success. This was one of the keys to the success of the transition from blended to fully online. Another objective we privileged was Objective 5. That was our third initiative, the learning spaces. Because of course, all of a sudden, the online learning spaces became the only way we could reach our students and, let's say, generate learning experiences. So we had already Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams as the basic solution also for all our communication, telephone communication, video communication within the university. And we decided to use that also for the online teaching courses, combined very rapidly with the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra tool, which is integrated in the Blackboard tool, which allowed us to scale up that kind of solution very rapidly. And in 3 weeks' time, we had Blackboard Collaborate Ultra also at the disposal of all our students, all our staff. And finally, we heavily invested in virtual classrooms. What you see here on the right, what you see here, voila, on the right-hand side of the picture, the images 2 and 3, the pictures 2 and 3, show you 2 of our virtual classrooms. We put in place virtual classrooms up to 80 students, allowing us, well, you have the teacher in front of his screens, but allowing to have a real, authentic interaction with them and to come to an almost, let's say, naturalistic simulation of a regular class on campus. So that was the learning spaces. The last one we focused on is our Leuven Learning Lab, because we are convinced from the very beginning that that network of first line support, of staff at the level of the groups, of representatives of the services had to be brought together in the Leuven Learning support team, so that if the first objective is the necessary prerequisites, then we have the Toledo Learning Platform for all to deliver all learning activities to the students, and then the online learning spaces to create the activities. Then we only need supporting staff to develop, to launch our program. That's the way we tackled the COVID-19 pandemic first wave at KU Leuven. And I have to admit that this was relatively successful. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic continued also during our examination period. And this meant that it was not only during the second semester here for the learning, but also for the examination period afterwards. And there we took the radical decision to have it maximally on campus and to limit the number of exams to only those exams where we were absolutely sure that they were fraud resistant. This was for us a very crucial element. So that's why we didn't use any proctoring tools or solutions like that. We limited ourselves to our online examination platform, X-Toledo, combined also with always with an oral component, with an oral check between the professor and the student, just to be sure that the person behind the screen is really the one we want to evaluate and to assess. Of course, for the upcoming year, this is the field in which we want to move forward. And through international collaborations, we want to learn more from how colleagues tackled the issue of online examination. And this brings me to the final point, back to the new normal. What will happen? So for the upcoming academic year, here in Belgium, the solution is simple. It's we combine on campus and online in a blended learning formula with the baseline, go digital, stay human. The stay human is very important. We can stay human online, but it's much easier to do that on campus if the COVID-19 pandemic allows to do so. So we have the stay human on campus, the going digital, the go digital for the online world, and we try to make the best of those both worlds. Not all staff members are already ready to go for the fully blended, integrated solution between online and on campus. And for those staff members, we foresee what we call rotation in teaching, which means that they give class to a more reduced number of students in the lecture hall, and there is streaming to other lecture halls where the remaining groups are sitting or staying at home or staying in their dorms and connecting, or in the library and connecting to the lecture hall with their laptops. But this is, let's say, a basic solution. We want definitely to move beyond that solution as soon as possible. Well, for the upcoming year, this means that, well, we have a bit more time to planify the whole operation. We continue, of course, we had 4 out of the 10 priorities of the action plan where we focused on a lot last semester. Now we are adding 4 more objectives. The first one is online assessment and examination. So we want to learn more about examination centers, computer-assisted testing, fraud-resistant online exams. And so whatever suggestions you could make, it would be very welcome. So the coming year, we are really going to invest, heavily invest in this field. Then we have the MOOCs for credit, of course. The MOOCs for credit will be very, very important, also at international level for our international networks. So we are very open to international collaborations at that point too. Then we have objective 6, the learning analytics, the dashboarding, the smart education. So couldn't we share new services through the intelligent harnessing of all the data we have at our disposal. And finally, the first line support. We're going to invest even more in the first line support to make things happen. So these are the final aspects we want to tackle. And well, this completes my presentation. What is now the major takeaway of this presentation? Perhaps the following, that even a comprehensive university with 60,000 students, 14 campuses, with an important international position, can afford to invest heavily in teaching. Of course, also in research, but also in teaching. Teaching is important. And invest also in going digital, in educational technology. And I hope you will have seen that investing in it before the COVID-19 has been the major factor of success for our university during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, everything is evolving and we can't foresee what is still coming up. But at least we are sure that the strategic choices we have made were useful to tackle that crisis. And now we are, let's say, better prepared for the upcoming period, better prepared, more relaxed. And this should allow us also to strengthen our international collaborationships with top partners all over the world, to exchange and to share the lessons learned from this COVID-19 pandemic, and to see to what extent on which of those aspects, online examination, MOOCs, the learning analytics, which of those aspects could be the basis for a good further international collaboration. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Desmet. Well, we learned a lot from the experience of KU Leuven. I'm just curious to know whether your case is very unique in Europe, or some other university have already prepared, had prepared before this COVID-19 pandemic started. So we'll discuss these things. Let me just briefly just summarize and then explain to the audience in Japanese, because translation function didn't really work too well. So I'll just very briefly explain to the audience. 今3人のスピーカーにお話をしていただきましたが、2番目のローゼンブルース先生と3番目のデスメット先生のお話は似通ったところがありまして、基本的には経営ルーバーにおいては強引デジタル、いろいろな教育研究、そして大学の活動をもっと最新技術を使ったものにしようという試みは、このセールス拡張になった時から試みられていました。ですから、この10のアクションプランがもう設定されていて、用意がかなりあった段階で、今回のこの COVID-19、そのコロナウイルスの感染拡大が観察され、物理的な対面授業が行われなくなり、すべてがオンラインになったわけです。で、そこで言っている、ちょっと初めに3番目のプレゼンに戻りますが、その10のアクションプランの中で、どういうふうな形で、やっていたのかっていうのは、そのインフラを整備してし、またその教育手段、においても多様性を持たせるような形にし、で実際に教育に用いられるような形の準備はして、いろいろな形態で、教育が行われるようにしたようです。でそこで重視したのは、やはりその人間を相手に、学生もそうですし、教員もそうですので、いかにそういう新しい環境で効率的に勉学を行い、また精神的にも圧迫を受けないような環境で教育を受け、そして、大学としては教育を提供するというふうなことは重要でありましたので、それを重視したということです。で、その2番目の報告でも、イェール大学では、対面授業ではなく、オンライン授業をやった問題点としては、いろんな形で、学生、ことに学生なんですが、feel more personal ということで、その授業自身が自分に向かって何か語りかけている先生がですね、で、議論も自分もそこに参加しているような形に、することが重要である、というふうな認識に立って、その2つの MOOCs のポリティカルサイエンスとサイコロジーの例でお話しいただきましたが、学生を疑似的にというか、そのクラスルームにいてもらって、で、実際にもう授業を行っているような環境で、情報提供するというようなことが行われたそうです。これはケイルーバンの方でも実際に写真が載っていましたが、クラスルームにスクリーンをガーッと並べて学生の顔が映っているような中で、あたかもその教場で授業を行っているようなことで、できるだけ学生がその通常の授業と同じような、気持ちで参加できるようにしたということでした。そして一番初めの香港中部大学の事例は Virtual Student Exchange ということで、その国際的な学生交流、もともとその香港中文大学では、約3万人の学生のうち、8000人ぐらい、7400人の学生が60カ国から来ている。かなり国際化の進んだその大学で、自分のところの大学の学生も、海外の、その協定校に280ある協定校に短期、長期、短期が、年間に5000ケース、そして、その学期単位のものが1200名ぐらいを送っていた伝統があるわけです。でそれが今回できなくなったので、 その APRU の、枠組みの中で、できるだけ、それに代替するようなもの、代替は全てはできないのかもしれませんが、を考えて、導入した。で、そこではアカデミックコースを、提供したり、で、共通するその文化的なことなり、あとリーダーシップ形成に関するものだとか、あとバーチャルなコミュニティを作るようなものについても、力を入れてプログラムを形成してきて、今スタートしつつあるというようなことで、かなりどういう特徴を持っているのかっていうのは詳しく説明していただきました。ちょっと説明しきれないのですいませんが、ここで、討論者のリーマージ先生にコメントと質問をパネリストの方に、していただきたいと思います。So I'd like to ask Professor Lee March, who is Dean of International Affairs Division at Waseda University. She has 2 doctoral degrees. Lee 先生に、so we'll ask Professor Lee to make comments and then ask questions representing the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Genma, and thank you so much for your valuable presentations. I think Professor Wong's virtual student exchange can be a very, very good model, as well as the Yale MOOC, high impact MOOC courses can be another model. Thank you very much for Professor Rosenbluth's presentation. And another, the University of from Belgium, Professor Desmet's presentation on go digital and stay human. I think that is the very phrase that would have to be kind of used as a vision in this kind of higher educational context. I have sent 2 sort of brief questions to all of the panelists to briefly answer in 1 or 2 minutes. And one question from this side is that, what about the student accessibility? If students cannot afford the costly internet connection, does your institution provide any kind of special funding? That is kind of one question, kind of practical question. And number 2 is, what about like, excuse me, I had this. What about like classes that cannot be replaced digital? For instance, like art classes or language learning classes, or some classes that require experiments. And another essential thing is online examination. How would you be able to monitor students' examination, plagiarism and all that, you know, are there any practical ideas? Thank you, and your input would be very much appreciated. Can we begin with Professor Wong?
Yes, thank you, Professor Maji Imae. Thank you. I read your question with also a very important aspect on student accessibility, because you quoted Bourdieu actually on who gets access to cultural capital more. That would mean even more than physical capital. Now, what we did in the past 2 semesters, we have, first of all, in Hong Kong, because of this very small size in Hong Kong, so data charge is very cheap. So what we did, we bought a data card for students who would need extra storage or data card in order to involve in the online courses, something like that. The other aspect is for students. We do have students who live in very, very small apartment with 4 or 5, family members together. That was quite a headache because there were all kinds of funny things happened. Like a student tried to get online to do a class. His mother would yell at him at the back, and it's all recorded, and everybody just cracked up, just, burst into laughters. We actually have arranged with the community, the district government offices to open nearby libraries or open some of those open space for community use, for the students not to travel back to the university, but for the student to travel to the nearby community center to do the online and Zoom courses. For some students, they would not even have, you would be surprised that they would not even be able to get access to a computer or a laptop of their own. They might have to share a laptop with the brother, with the sister together in a house. So what we did was we did a computer loan program to the student. So the university bought a few hundreds of laptop computers, and we loaned that to the students. And after that, we plan to, in fact, sell them back to our offices in the university office, or put them in the library or in our computer labs. So this is one thing that we're trying all sorts of means to help students who are in need. The other question that you raised on exams, we have managed to develop a software called Merit Guide that students will have to submit their take-home exam, for example, to the Merit Guide, and the Merit Guide will tell him the percentage of similar sentences or paraphrasing from another article that he or she must check back whether that is not supposed to be his or her own creation. So we have a Merit Guide software that we ask every single student to submit to that program software. Our tolerance level is only 15% to 20%, dependent on the nature of the course or the discipline that the student is involved in the take-home exam. So that we tackled with the take-home exam. We try to persuade faculty members to conduct as many take-home exams as possible, in fact. But for some of the exams that they were not able to do take home, we will then ask the students to do 50% take home, keeping the 50% in class for the next semester. So sort of to give a pass or fail for this semester, but they will be able to get a grade back as soon as they resume class physically. And we will ask the student to do the other 50. So that's just a very short-term solution. We do not know if online if it ever becomes perpetual. That would be a real trouble for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a valuable comment. Thank you again. Professor Rosenbluth.
Hi, Dr. Rhee. It's so nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Yale did something quite similar to the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Last semester, Yale and other American universities went to something called Universal Pass, rather than to try to assess in the middle of the pandemic. But for the coming semester, we're going to do something more like what Professor Wong lays out, which is more take-home assessments with something that Professor Desmet mentioned, the online, the oral or verbal check, so that there's a way to see and probe whether students' written answers can be in a one-to-one, it could be very short, but just a one-to-one interview with each student. Does the student really know how to back up an answer? The university is allowing each division to have their own policies. So it's not a blanket policy, but groups of faculty are getting together to think about how to do this in a fair way. You mentioned the access to technology, and in the United States, there's a lot of income inequality. So like Waseda, Yale has also provided equipment so that every student has an opportunity to participate remotely. And then you mentioned classes that are harder to teach online. I think there's quite, you know, Professor Desmet outlined some creative ways that things that we thought could not be taught online might in fact be accessible that way. Language has already moved quite far in that direction. Science and labs are a little harder, but there's an attempt to move in that direction. But for the most part, there's a plan to have distanced in-class learning, smaller classes, and perhaps rotating across groups from a class so that everybody has a chance to have hands-on lab work or sculpture, painting, and so on.
Thank you for your valuable comment. Thank you again. Professor Desmet?
Thank you so much, Professor Lee. Well, you asked three questions. As to what the first question is concerned, the student accessibility, I think the situation here in Leuven is, as to what tuition is concerned, quite different from the Japanese and American and Chinese situation. Tuition is very low. Data coverage is maximal. And so we don't have many students having really problems with accessibility. Well, there's a limited number of students having those issues, and for them we have a system of laptop laptop loan also if they can't afford. So let's say, globally speaking, I can say that at that point the infrastructure they need is provided, and there we don't have really problems. So our expertise in that field is limited. As to what the assessment and exams is concerned, we are extremely reluctant here at KU Leuven to use whatever technology unless it's really fraud resistant. And so in our expertise, so 14% only, 14% of all examinations at KU Leuven were realized through an online version. And we have essentially three types of examination formats. The first one is what I called X Toledo. It's the protected version, the blocked version of our learning experience platform Toledo. It's an online examination tool, completely secured, but we only use it for open questions, not for closed questions, and on campus in examination rooms, so in examination centers, you see. So we don't use that online unless there is an oral, a verbal check. Because the main issue for us is always, do we have the person we want to assess behind the computer? And that remains a tremendous problem. With proctoring, you have, of course, already, so proctoring allows you to have a look in the room where the student is taking his exam. Well, first of all, there is a GDPR issue, an important GDPR issue. But secondly, there is, let's say, it's never excluded that fraud is done, because of course you can be behind screens, you can have third screens, and so on and so forth. So fraud is relatively, if you want to know how to do it, Google just how to fraud proctoring systems, and you'll find immediately some very amusing videos on how you can cheat using proctoring systems. So we have the online exam system, we have the take-home exams, and we have the oral exam. That are the only 3 types of exam we allow for in the we allow as online exams. But we would be very willing to get in touch with other universities having expertise with other exam formats, as long as they are fraud resistant. We are in touch with plenty of universities. Until now, we didn't find other solutions than those 3 to be really confident about the quality of our exams. And then the last one, well, being myself also a professor of education technology, I've been working for 15 years more or less in the field of how can we make things happen online for all subjects and also for advanced learners. And so I'm a professor of linguistics and language learning, language teaching also. In language learning, the field of computer system language learning has evolved a lot, and there almost all activities can be done online. It would be, let's say, a topic for another talk. In science and engineering, we now have simulation labs, allowing us to do the lab online also, and collaboration tools on those simulation tools. In medicine, we use virtual reality and augmented reality. But it's true that in the end, the last phase, so in medicine, for instance, if you want to examine a patient to come to a diagnosis, you can't do that online. That's evident. I mean, you need the physical contact with the patient. In engineering, if you want to, an industrial engineer, for instance, who needs to make one solution or not, a concrete solution, an object, of course, that should be made physically. So there are some activities that should be done in the physical world. It's unavoidable. And in that sense, I fully agree with what said Professor Wong. If the COVID-19 pandemic continues, and if you're condemned to continue in the fully online mode, that would be a catastrophe, because computers are not made to replace our high-quality educational standards. It's a perfect assistant, it's a perfect combination, but when we go digital, let's stay human.
Thank you, Professor Desmet. And thank you again for Professor Wong, Professor Rosenbluth, and Professor Desmet for your valuable comments and presentations. Thank you again.
Yeah, there is just one quick question from the floor. At KU Leuven, Mr. Imai is asking whether, well, in this rotation section, rotation in teaching section, you mentioned that you're reducing the number of students in one classroom. What is the rule for organizing the size of the class who can participate in the online courses?
So the number of students we allow, so in principle, this is for the larger lecture halls. So let's say 200, 300, up to 700, 800 students, the maximum being 1,000 students, more or less. The government decides on the number of students we can have in one of those halls. For the moment, we have to divide the maximum number of places by 5. So 1,000, a lecture hall for 1,000 students. Now for the moment, we have 200 of them in the lecture hall. It means that 800 should access the course from home, from the library, from the dorms, from the student room, and so on and so forth. That's the reason also why we created studios. We transformed our libraries into online studios, where they have individual study places all over the library with enough distance between the two positions. and where they can follow the course with the headset. So we have to be very, very creative, and we hope, of course, that by the beginning of the academic year, it won't be division by 5, but perhaps by 4 or by 3 or by 2. So our strategy is to have a kind of basic solution, and then whether it is divided by 5, by 4, by 3, by 2, we couldn't care anymore in a certain sense. We managed the situation for the students and for the professors, of course. The more students you can have and the more human you can stay, the better in a certain sense. Although we have already done some interviews and some research on the effectiveness of the way we tackled COVID-19, and many students said that they were much more concentrated in the online version, that they worked harder on what they did through that online solution, but that it was much, well, let's say, it was much more intensive, and they enjoyed less student life, of course. But finally, I can say also, and this is a very important point, in a certain sense, it's very positive for online learning. That is that at KU Leuven, the exam results at the end of the last academic year were slightly better than the years before. This means that the COVID crisis didn't have a negative impact on study results here at KU Leuven. This is, for us, important news and stimulates us also to continue to have an ethic component as a basic component of our educational offer, but not the exclusive component, of course.
Thank you very much. 対面の時のCOVID、すみません、コロナウイルスの感染の今後の話なんですが、現状では政府のルールによって定員の5分の1のサイズで対面の授業を行うというようなことだそうです。で、成績に関しては、直近の経験としては、前年度よりも、わずかですが成績は良かったというようなことで、このオンラインにしたことによる学習面での負の効果っていうのは、現れていないということが確認されたというふうに言っていました。それではじゃあ以上で私の方からは終了しまして、深澤先生の方にお返しします。